morning. I'm here in the Granny's Legacy Design Studio and my name is Kim Zink and we're going to be talking about section 1 of our new secret garden. And the section 1 happened to be these, they're hourglass blocks, but they're these 4 blocks here. And so we're going to talk about the 9 patches and we're going to talk about the hourglass blocks and how to prepare the fabric and how to get your blocks so they're exactly perfect. So I'm going to start talking about the 9 patch blocks. You're going to be making 60 of them, but you really only need 8 for this first section. So to begin with, we love the Shape Cut ruler. It makes your blocks extremely accurate. Your cutting is perfect. So I've got a strip of fabric on here, and if you don't want to start with like a 10-inch stripe of fabric, I'll give you a little trick I use. So these strips are going to be cut 2 inches. So I've cut the first strip already. You're going to be doing that. So your ruler will be here. Well, I'll do that too. So what I do is I make sure that one of these lines lines up with the lines on my mat. And then I can really cut the full length. Just move my ruler as long as I keep these square with the mat. So I have an exact first cut, but I don't need to take my off. I just leave it on, and as long as I always have these lined up with my ruler, I don't take it up and off. So I can cut several strips. I just keep moving, but as long as I make sure my ruler is got these lined up, I can cut all of them. So usually I would go and I would cut all the way across before I move my ruler, and then move my ruler. So I'm getting everybody confused, I'm sure. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Cut them all, move the ruler, and then cut the remaining ones. And as long as you stay squared with your ruler, you can slide your ruler and not have to start with little 10-inch strips. If that makes you uncomfortable, start with 12-inch strips. So I've got them cut this way, and you can see I've got perfect 2-inch strips. Should have started with a new blade, I can see. I think it's because I'm cutting I don't have a firm surface. You'll be cutting on a firm surface. So then you'll turn and you want to cut 2-inch squares. So now you're going to be cutting this way, every 2 inches. Every 2 inches. And it's so simple, and you get exact perfect 2-inch squares, and you can see these are exactly perfect. And then you can set out your squares. So if I were going to do a block, I would set out 5 gray and 4 cream, and then I can sew my block together to make my 9 patches. So the Shape Cut ruler is absolutely just a wonderful tool to use when cutting strips and squares. Okay, now we'll go into doing the hourglass box. So that's this section 1, and you should be getting your kits today, maybe even, or tomorrow. And you need an hourglass block that looks like this. So we start with 6-inch squares, and you're going to be taking and cutting diagonally through all layers from corner to corner, and you're just going to cut these triangles. And then what I do is I lay them out, 4 squares identical like this, and then stitch together 2 and 2 and press one seam going one way, one seam going the opposite way, so that when you put these together, those seams will nest, and they'll nest perfectly together like this. And if you do it right, you'll be sewing this with this. So you're gonna stitch on your machine, and if your seam is pressed this way, it really works better. If it goes the other way, it kind of tends to pull apart. But if it goes the other way, it's no matter. Use a very, very fine pin. Put a little pin in that, and that'll hold that together. And then press to the dark side, and you've got this perfect hourglass block. Now, I forgot to mention, before doing anything with your fabrics, you're going to want to stabilize it. We like it pre-shrinks and it will stabilize. If you use some kind of best press or starch, or if you really are in the South and you're afraid of using the starches or the best press, anything with a chemical or anything in it, at least, at the very least, use steam so that you can get those fabrics really, really pre-shrunk. And a little bit of starch really does help to stabilize, especially these diamond fabrics. They're a little bit looser woven, but we absolutely adore them because they are so, the textures are gorgeous. They just work so nicely with wool applique. So stabilize your fabric first before you do any cutting at all. So that was, I should have started with that. So now we've got the hourglass block. When you sew your seams, I always like this 1/4 inch foot, and it's just wonderful. As you come down the seam, you do not want to be too snug against the edge. Give it a little space because you need more space for that seam allowance. Use a 50 weight thread. That's nice. It's a thinner thread, and that will take up less room in your seam allowance. So now I have this square, and I really need to square it up to 5 inches before I begin. So the OmniGrip 6.5 inch ruler is perfect for this. It's got a diagonal line. We know we want 5 inches. So what I've done here is I'm putting that diagonal line right on my stitching line. And I also want to find the 2.5 inch because that's half of 5. And that 2.5 inch dot there, and sometimes I'll take a red Sharpie and draw a little circle around that. I know I want that where these 2 points join. So right here in the center, I want 2.5 on the diagonal line so that I know that I'm squaring up my block perfectly. So once you get that set up, you want 5 inches, and you can double check and make sure your 5 inch comes out at the seam here and 5 inches comes out at the seam there. And then you're just going to take and square across, and then turn your block and do the exact same thing. It should be exactly 5 inches then, and everything should come out perfectly. 5 inches here, 5 inches there. I'm on my diagonal. I've got a 2.5 point right there in the center. And I'm gonna cut and trim and get that all squared up. So now I have an exact perfect 5 inch block to do my applique on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a piece of Ultra Weft stabilizer on that block. And this is a woven stabilizer, and it's included in your kit, and it's just wonderful. It gives you just enough oomph on the back of that block so for the stitching. So there's a grainy side, you can kind of feel it. It feels kind of like sugar. That's the glue. So glue side to the wrong side of the fabric, and then you can use a little steam in your iron, and you're just gonna press that on the back of your block. Use a little steam to get that glue activated. And that's how easy it is to prepare your block, your hourglass block, for section 1, the hummingbird, on our secret garden. So we're so happy to have you stitching along with us, and we hope you enjoy this project as much as we have. Happy stitching!